Hi, everyone, and welcome back to week 4 of Obsidian October. There have been some really cool plugins being shared on the Discord server so far. I'm super looking forward to trying all of them, as many as I can at least, once they are published. Today, however, we will be looking at how you can add your own views. Uh, and if you don't know what a view is, don't worry, we'll walk you through that as well. We'll actually continue where we left off last week with our Halloween plugin, and we're going to add a custom view to it. So after a short break, we will get back to you with a guest speaker, which this week is going to be Max, who is going to tell you of how you can improve your views using the Svelte framework. So don't miss it. Please stick around until after the break. But before that, I'll start giving an introduction to what a custom view is and how you can add one to your plugin. So let's dive right into it. So looking here at the plugin that we've started building over these few weeks, we have a lot of things. We have some settings, we have ribbon actions, we have some commands going on here. And if something here looks unfamiliar to you, feel free to check back with the previous weeks, and you can kind of see how we introduce that. But so this week we want to look at views. And first off, what is a view? Well, looking at the Obsidian application window, you can kind of see three main areas. So you have a dock here on the right side. You got a main area here in the middle, and you got a left dock here on the left side. All right. So up here at the top here, you can see that each of these areas have kind of tabs, right? So we can click these buttons up here and we're switching between these tabs. Same thing here in the main area here. We can switch. Let's go to another file, and you can see that there are two different files here being shown. Same thing on the right side here. We can switch between all of these features in Obsidian. And in Obsidian land, these tabs are called leaves, Leaf. So each of these leaves, they can kind of be moved around. So these are not static. So I can, if I prefer to have my tags on this side, I can move that, and I can move that back again. So while you may know that you can do this from, tap the dock to dock, for example, there's nothing stopping you from bringing in a note here, for example, into the dock, right? And so you can kind of shift things around in what's called a workspace. So all of these, this kind of configuration of tabs and areas are called a workspace. And this is going to be important once we start looking at views, because a view is actually inside a leaf. So looking here, for example, we can say that if I switch to the File Explorer here, you can see that while this is a leaf, it contains a view. So let's look at the actual HTML here, and I'll prove it to you. So if we kind of select here, you can see if I collapse these ones, you can see that you have the tab container here, and you have these four leaves here, which corresponds to the tabs you see at the top. If we open this one up, you can say that you have a resize handle, but you also have this div called leave content. And this is a div where your view will live. So once we start building views, this is actually where they will end up. So you can see that this view, this File Explorer view, has something called a header and a files container. So this is custom, but imagine a leaf, something that can be positioned inside your Obsidian application. And a view is what's being displayed within that leaf. So a view does not actually know where it is in the application, doesn't care actually. It's the responsibility of the leaf to be able to be moved around essentially. So now that we know kind of what a leaf and a view is, we can start looking at building a view. So the first thing we want to do is go back to our source code, and we're gonna create a new file to house our view. I'm gonna call it view.ts. And I'm gonna create a new class here. And I'm gonna call it, because we have a spooky plugin, I'm gonna call this a spooky view. And what's gonna happen is that I'm gonna extend what's called an item view. And we'll see what happens. Let me just widen this a little bit so we can see more. So we're gonna have to include that from Obsidian. So let's find an item view from Obsidian, something like that. Cool. So next we see that there's a red line under Spooky View, and that means that it's not actually implementing all the required methods. So I can fix that by adding them. And the only required methods is this view type and this display text. And the view type is an ID for how to uniquely identify your view. So this is going to be important once we create leaves and we tell the leaf what view are we going to put in this leaf, and we refer to that by its type. So we can return something like a spooky view. And you can set this however you like, but make sure that it's something that makes sense to your plugin. In fact, I'm gonna extract this into a constant because I'm gonna have to refer to it in the future. So I'm gonna call it something like spooky view type, and I'm just gonna move that into here, spooky view, and I'm gonna replace that here. There we go. And next, we want to implement the display text. And this is what's going to end up as the kind of the title of your view. And in this case, we can see that in this markdown view, we can see that it's actually the title of a note, but it doesn't have to be. So you can see that you have different types of display text here for each of these views. So in this case, let's return something like a spooky title. I'll get back to what this actually will do, because in the essence of Halloween, I figured that there is a lot of spooky things happening during Halloween, and if it ever becomes too much, we need someone we can call, right? Who are you gonna call? So I'm actually thinking that we can do something like a contact list or a phone book here. So let's call this like our contacts, emergency contacts, even better. I like that. So something like that. Okay. So now we have a view. We have a very simple view. It doesn't actually display anything, but a view nonetheless. The next thing we need to do we need to tell Obsidian, about it. And the way we do that is just like we've done in the past. We're going to add it to our plugin by registering it. So using this.register view. What does that take? It takes a string, which is the type of plugin. And now you can kind of see why I created that constant, because now I can kind of create that here. And the next is going to be actually a callback. So this is going to be a function. And this function returns a new instance of your view. So we're going to do a new spooky view. And this takes a leaf as a let's actually see. Yeah. So let's see. Yeah. So we need to. Oh yeah. So this callback actually takes a leaf as an argument, and we just pass that into our view essentially. Very cool. So I'm gonna click away here. I'm just gonna check if there's uh, uh, um, any comments. Wonderful. No comments so far. If you have any questions on what you're seeing right now, if there's anything you don't understand, feel free to comment, and I will try to check back, see if there's anything I can refer to in the moment. Otherwise, there will be plenty of time for questions. So great. So this, I want to point out that this here is going to be called potentially multiple times. Even though you have a leaf already, this might actually be used to, reinitialize it. So don't expect this to only be run once, but it actually can run multiple times. So don't keep references of all your views. Let Obsidian do that by itself. Cool. So now Obsidian knows about our view, but we don't have any way of opening it, right? If you look in Obsidian for the file explorer, we have this command, for example, like show file explorer, and it will open up. If you don't already have it, it will open it up. Okay, so we need something sort of similar, right? Let's say that we create another ribbon action that is going to open this for us, right? And in this case, let's call it, take a file icon, and here is going to be our emergency contacts. Cool. So something like that. So what do we do in here, right? This is actually where we need to open the view. I like to extract this into its own method just to keep things together. So I'm just gonna create a open view method here. So let's add that down here. We call it open view. What do we do in here? Well, so first off, we need kind of a leaf to put our view in. So that's the first thing we need to do. We need to create a leaf that is going to hold our view. So we can do that by accessing the app. And on the app, we want to have the workspace. So the workspace is going to configure and manage where leaves end up inside Obsidian. And in this case, I actually want to have the contact list on the right side. I like having, I like the right side. I don't know why. I rarely keep things in the left side. Don't ask me why. It's just how I do it. So I'm gonna add it into the right side here, in the right dock here, and I can do that with this get right leaf. And so this, for me, this was a little confusing at first because the get right leaf doesn't actually, it actually creates a new leaf for you. So it's not returning an existing one, but actually creates one. And then you can tell it to actually split it. And I'll show you in a minute why, what that looks like. But for now, let's create a leaf. No split for now. I'm gonna store this leaf here. Next, we want to tell what view is going to live inside this leaf. And we can do that by setting the view states of that leaf. And that actually takes an object, and that object has a type. And what do you think we're going to add that? Well, again, our kind of ID for that view. Okay, so now we have a leaf. We've set what view is going to be inside it. And so the next thing is that we need to actually, show it if it's not there. And we can do that by revealing it. And I'll show you what that looks like here. So I can use this reveal method on the workspace instance as well. And what that is going to do that actually, I'm gonna comment this out just to show you what happens if I don't have it. So let's make this a little bigger, and let's see. So I have this emergency contacts here. I'm gonna make this a little bigger so I can see it. So when I click this now, you see that it popped up here. So now I have a new tab here, a new leaf with my emergency contacts. But I kind of wanted to immediately focus on it, right? And that's what the reveal leaf does. So if I uncomment this, and I'm gonna close this one I just opened. I'm gonna click this again, and now it actually switches to that leaf, which I think is kind of nice. So doesn't just create it, but actually switches it, makes it the active view. So very cool. That's a good start. Let's see what else. What do we need? Well, so looking at this, if I click this again, we're just going to keep adding new views here. And that doesn't really make sense for my plugin here. I just want to have like one view, just like you wouldn't expect. Like if I open the show file explorer, it doesn't open up a new file explorer. It just reveals the one that I already have. So I kind of want something similar. But for that, I kind of need to remove all the ones I have before I open up a new one. So I kind of clean everything up. And I can do that using another method on the workspace called detach leaves of type. And I can add the same type that I have here. And so what I'm going to do here, that when I click here, then I'm going to first remove all the leaves of my type, and then I'm going to open up a new one, right? So if I click that, you can see that they got removed and then a new one in its place, right? So that's kind of a nice way to do it, I think, but it depends on your plugin. Like that. Okay. So now we have our view, we have a way to open it, but it's empty. Not very exciting. So now the fun part begins of actually creating our view. So let's switch back to it. So what do we do here? Well, it turns out that there is a method called onOpen here that we can use. I'm actually going to remove, I'm going to make this async so I can remove the promise there. And this is going to be called every time I can open or activate this view. And what I'm going to do now is that I want to have, so what I can do is that I can extract this content EL from this instance. And the content EL is an HTML element where I can put all the stuff that I'm going to add to this view. And all HTML elements, they have a set of, I want the content view. Content. Oh, there you go. And they have these helper methods for creating new elements on that one, essentially. So for now, I kind of want to have an H1 title, and I want to add some text. Let's call it emergency text, right? Something like that. There you go. And you see the hot reloaded, and it started adding it to my view here. So this is going to be very helpful once we start developing this. So what else? Well, we want probably to add some contacts here. So I'm gonna actually reuse something I introduced in the last week's episode, which is a setting. So even though settings are mostly used in the actual settings, I can use this anywhere. So I can say here that I want to add this to my content element. And I'm going to set a name here. And this is going to be the name of my contact. And the one place I'm going to call if I'm seeing ghosts, well, it's obviously the Ghostbusters, right? So I'm going to add that, and we have our first contact. And we kind of want to add a button. At least I want to add a button that lets me call them right away. It got to be super easy. you got ghosts and monsters running around your apartment, you want to be super fast, right? So I'm gonna do this. So this is gonna be exactly the same as you saw in the previous episode. So if this looks new to you, feel free to check that out. So here I can add, I can set the button text here. That's gonna be call. So if I save there, it's gonna be a little button here that says call. I can click it, nothing opens. So one question here on open is that when the view is created or when it's focused or revealed. So it's if I close this, for example, then there's actually going to be another function called unclose that will be called every time that it kind of disappears from the view. And actually, we can do this just for the sake of it. Let's make the async, and let's just set a notice here whenever these are called. So I can do another one here, and let's do an on open, right? So now we should see something when we open it. There you go. So on open, and even if I focus other things, it's not showing me the on open notice. So I can close this, and you can see that the on close is shown as well. So great question. I'm going to remove that for now. So let's see, where were we? Well, we now have, let's open the view again. We now have our first contact, and we can see the button here. It's not really doing anything. So I'm going to leave the actual logic for actually calling. I'm sure there are great services for that out there, but I kind of want some logic to this, where if I'm clicking this, I want to show it like I'm in a call. Like when I click this button, I'm going to hop into a call with someone at the desk. So when I click this, I wanted to show that instead I want to hang up, for example, when I'm done. So how do we implement that? Well, I kind of need to have some kind of state here, right? I need to be able to tell whether I'm actually in a call or not. So let's add a variable here, like is calling, and that's going to be a Boolean. And what else? What else? So now I can do something like is. So if I'm calling, then I want it to say hang up. And if I'm not in a call, then I want to say call on the button. So obviously I am clicking here and nothing happens because we need to actually set the variable. And I can do that using the onClick method here. And that takes a callback. And what I'm going to do is essentially just toggle the is calling field here. So I'm going to say not is calling and reassign that. Cool. So that's about as much logic that we're going to have. But as you will see now, if I click this, nothing happens. That is weird. So obviously this is not working. So why is that? But let's do some debugging here. Let's say what is the actual value of the is calling here once I'm clicking it. Right. So let's do something like that. Okay, so now we're gonna click it. Okay, I can see that it's actually working, right? It's toggling, but for somehow the text doesn't update. So this is kind of something that you want to take care of. So there is no managing of state here. Once you change something, you need to actually update that HTML element yourself. So one way we can do that is, for example, to create another like a render method here where we can move all of this stuff into, and then we can kind of call that render method on open. But we can also call it here inside this this onClick, basically. So what we're doing is that we're rendering this content. As you're gonna see, this is actually gonna start adding things, over and over again, because we're not actually removing anything from the view. So the first thing we need to do is we actually need to empty the view, or the remove everything from that HTML element. So now when I click here, now we can actually see that it's changing along with the state. And so this is something that you will run into if you're managing state in your view, if you have a very reactive type of view that you want to manage. This is kind of a brute force way to do it, though, because as you see now, every time the state changes here, I'm removing everything, the entire view, including the header here, right? That's a bit unnecessary. That's like a sledgehammer method, where I'm just removing everything and then putting everything back there when just one value has changed. So we should probably be able to do that a little more effective, or efficient, I should say. And so what we could be doing here is that I could create a sort of off of this content EL, I can create maybe another div here that is like my content, context view, and I can store that maybe as a variable, like a state somewhere, and then when a state changes, I can just update that one without actually having to clear the entire view. I can just clear, this context EL element instead. So that's a little more efficient. But as we will see after the break, there is another way to do this. If you're open to experiment with bringing in a different framework inside your plugin called Svelte, which I'm told will be able to handle this much better. So you don't actually have to manage, updating the entire view yourself whenever state changes. So I'm super excited about trying out that. But so this is kind of a good starting point. There is one last thing I want to cover before we take a break, and that is cleanup. Because if I disable my plugin now, let's see. So I have this view open in the background. If I disable the Spooky plugin, you can see that it's still there, right? It's still a little thing there that didn't get removed. So, and you instead get this text here that is kind of ugly. So what we want to do is that once we unload the plugin, we want to clean up all the views after us. Turns out we already have a way to do that because we have that in here in open view. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to copy that, and I'm going to add it to the unload method. It's going to run whenever we disable the plugin. So now then you can see that I have this view open here, and I'm going to disable the Spooky plugin, and it gets removed. So very nice, very, very clean. And I feel much more responsible. So that's about everything that I wanted to show today. It's a brief introduction to how you can create custom views. Feel free to experiment with this, right? I'm using the right leaf. Try to adding it in the middle one, or on the right side or the left side. Try seeing what this split argument does. So what happens if I switch this to true? So I'm going to leave that to you to experiment a little bit with. Cool. So I'm actually going to wrap this up for now. Don't go anywhere because we're just going to take a short break for you to get some water. I'm going to have some water as well. And when we get back, I'm going to bring with me my next speaker, and we're going to be looking at Svelte. So stay tuned. Be right back.